Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome back to another weekly art challenge review video. I'm your host, BJ Dell, and every week I challenge you guys by giving you a word prompt. Then you hop on over to Facebook and post your designs based on that weekly word. This last week's word was zombie, so let's see what you guys came up with. Alright guys, let's go ahead and jump into the review video this week for the word zombie, and the first one up is from David. This one is really cool. With this, you can see a lot of just like rough sketch lines, and I think that works really well for the subject matter. So that's one thing to always kind of keep in mind. What are you drawing? What's the subject matter? And kind of what's the aesthetic that you want to represent that? And I think with zombie, you know, using techniques like this with this really rough, kind of loose lining technique and inking works really well. The same thing ties in kind of to the shadows here. These are done really rough and loose, and I like the color used in this. It's almost a kind of purplish to where it works kind of as a shadow, but also almost gives kind of like that bruised nature look to it, just the way that it's done with the different strokes and the layering. Here you can see, I'm not sure what brush used on this, but with this kind of here with the opacity a little bit less than this up here, kind of works for that, like I said, just a really loose, almost bruised look to it. And I think that looks really, really good with this one. Same thing down here with the teeth. There's just a bunch of different strokes going on down here and just looks loose and rough and very sketchy. And I think it works really well for the zombie. I love this open eye hole here with the eye dangling down and just kind of falling into the mouth with the tongue coming over the top. I think that's a really wise design choice. Same thing with here, breaking up the head here with that open part of the skull sticking through. I think that looks really, really good too. So fantastic job this week, David. Thanks for sharing that. Next up is Jess, and Jess had said, let me pull up, she said, for starters, let me just say that this would have been a whole lot easier if I could actually get the layers right. Had to shadow and highlight without reference lines. So I'm not sure what that means, if like you lost the lines and had to add them back in, or if you're talking about using like the lines as a reference layer, or the shadows as a reference layer on the lines. I don't know. With the shadows and highlights, I don't actually use the regular outlines as the reference on those. I just use that to color drop everything in. So I'm not sure, what you're saying there, but you also said too, the brush setting's wrong because my lines got pixelated and my fine lines, like the veins and the eyeballs and the worm lines, got filled in when I added the colors. So I don't know if that's necessarily a brush issue. Usually if you start to see pixelated brush lines, it might not really be a brush issue. It might be the canvas size that you're using and the resolution. So going higher on that is going to make those a little bit cleaner. If you drop that down and have a lower resolution, lower canvas size and a lower DPI, that's going to affect kind of the bumpiness of the lines. Usually, just because I do a lot of merch by Amazon stuff, I usually just stick with a 4500 by 5400 canvas at a 300 DPI. So definitely go back and check and see what your resolution is. And then the second thing too was the veins and the eyeballs and the worm lines got filled in when I added the colors. So usually what will happen with that, if you've got like some thin lines here, might have been when you went and color dropped in, it actually touched one of those lines. That happens quite a bit, so if you just undo and try it again, if you've got those lines laid in there pretty well, it shouldn't actually fill in the colors. So just some trial and error there, just see exactly, what's going on. But if you have all those, like I said, set in there on the same line layer, have that set to reference, you should be pretty good. But overall for the design, I really like it. A zombie Mr. Potato Head, I think, is a really cool look. Works really well. I like the worms, coming out of the nose here and out of the ear here. Of course, I would love to see him what it looks like, when you said you had the extra lines in there and stuff, and the veins and the eyes. I think it still works without those, but I can definitely see what you were going for on those. So that would be cool to kind of see what you initially had in mind. And then the colors used, I think, are really, really good. I like the green, of course, kind of the usual zombie look, but kind of tying in the blues and the purples to this as well. I think that's really cool. I like too that the tongue here sticking out. You went with purple here. I think with pink, it would be kind of too much pink in between the mouth and the gums and then the brain up here. So I think that was a really wise color choice there. And then the yellow on the tongue with those little dots too, I think works really, really well. For shadows, I would just kind of keep in mind and look as far as where the light source is coming from. It looks like there's a lot of heavy shadows over here on this side, but then the eye and the wraparound parts here are kind of shadowed a little bit here. So those might have a little bit more highlights than shadows depending where you've got the light source. It looks like pretty much coming in from this way. So with these, I would probably put the shadow of this eye kind of over here on this side, and then you know, kind of have this a little bit more highlighted on this area with the light source coming in. But a really fantastic job. I love the design aspect of it, and I think it's really well executed. So thanks so much for sharing that this week, Jess. Next up is Cameron, and this one is just absolutely fantastic. Love it. Grains. Like I've said before in previous videos, I'm a huge fan of, you know, storytelling on single panels. Of course, you've got two basic words here, but it's very humorous. It tells a really good story, and I think it's really well executed as well. I like here too, just like the previous one before that we had with David's, the kind of loose sketch look. I think that works really well for this. Adds kind of, you know, that feeling of the zombie and the aesthetic that you're going for, and I like that. I like too just the filling in here with the pants down here is just kind of rough, and the same thing goes with, you know, the I'm assuming this is hand lettered here. It really reminds me of that kind of classic like political cartoon look, and just like the looseness of it all just really works. I think, like I said, the humor behind it is just fantastic. And I like the layout too, as far as the word bubble here, how it kind of sets on top of this one. You didn't use basic word bubbles. This is more of the traditional one with the square, and since he's, you know, yelling here, you've got the kind of edginess to this one, and I think that's really cool. And then the little design geometric pattern back here works to kind of frame everything, and I think the color choice of the background is really good too. I love the overall pose of the zombie here. You've got the, you know, traditional arms out look with the fingers in this hand is done really well, and then of course with the bone showing here, I like that as a little extra design choice too, to kind of break it up a little bit. So fantastic job, Cameron. Thanks for sharing that this week. Next one is Abbey, and let me pull up Abby's. Abbey had a comment and said, "Severe amateur alert, only my second digital art, so I know the shadows are all off and so much can be improved, but just got to practice." Honestly, I said in the comment section, really good for, you know, a first or actually second attempt on this. So don't sell yourself short, Abby. I think this is really good. The choice here, she kind of went with the grains as well with the bread, and I like the overall design. I think it's cute. I think it works really well. Color choice is really good. Everything pops. Of course, we've got the eye popping out here, just like we had in the previous one as well. With the eye here, I would probably, let's see, let me make sure I'm on the right layer here. Probably just go ahead and wrap like this back in here. So this looks like a hole, so you'd almost have, you know, the eye popping out like that. That's the only thing really that I would change there, just so it doesn't look just like one huge piece popping out of here. That should kind of be the whole. The other thing too, you talked about shadows, and I like the curve of the shadows up here. I think this is done really well. And one of the kind of the quick, easy cheating ways of doing shadows that a lot of people do is just, you know, a circle down at the bottom. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. I think with this one, just because, you know, you've got such a cool shape of the bread, you could do a little bit on this bottom shadow. And I kind of prepped this one beforehand to walk you through it. So let's say this is going to represent kind of all your layers. Of course, this I just took off of Facebook. I don't have a layered file. So usually, you know, you would have your lines, you would have your colors, you would have your shadows, you would have your highlights, so on and so forth. So what I would do is I would go ahead and duplicate all those layers. So you would have an extra line layer, extra shadows, extra highlights, extra color layer. Then pinch all those together. So basically, you're going to have the separate layers, and then underneath all those, you're going to have all the layers combined. So I've got these laid in here, and I removed the background to kind of make this a little bit easier. So this one here, just pretend this one is all those layers separately. Let's pretend this one underneath is all those layers merged together. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and select this layer by clicking here and then hitting select. And then we're going to go ahead and fill this layer with black. So we've got black selected up here, and we're going to fill layer. So what that does, it keeps your main layers up here, and then it's going to add just a black solid layer underneath. So from here, what we're going to do is go ahead and go to our transform little arrow here. And then we're going to, let me zoom out a little bit so we can see this better. Go to our transform arrow, and then we're going to pull this down. So this is going to be the shadow, but you see this is the actual shape that you've got up here. From here, we can kind of pull this in a little bit more. Since you've got the light coming from this way, we kind of want the shadow to come that way as well. So if we go to the distort selection here, we can kind of start to pull this out into the angle that you have the light source coming from. So you see it's using your actual shape from up here, so you don't have to redraw that. And it just makes it look a little bit more realistic, and you can kind of pull this up and play with it so it looks correct. And then from here, you can go ahead and go to your adjustments menu and drop down the opacity and get just a little bit more realistic looking shadow. So let me combine these now. So we went from, you know, just the basic round one there to something that actually kind of plays off of the actual shape and the light source coming in. So that's just a little tip and trick that you can use for the future, but keep with it. Honestly, if that's your, you know, second attempt at digital, you did a fantastic job. So definitely look forward to seeing more of your stuff in the future. Next up is Leona, and Leona has, let me zoom in on this really cool zombie head here. And Leona said this is actually the second drawing on Procreate as well, using the iPad. So fantastic job once again for, you know, a second attempt. This is really good. She said that she used one of the tutorials that I did as far as outlining to make this one. I messed up on the layering part of the white highlighting as I can see the under layers. So I'm not sure if you planned on this being like white, but kind of seeing the underlayers is something that you're striving for. That's kind of what you want to do. When you do shadows or when you do highlights, the way that I show in the videos is you do a separate layer on top of your colors with a solid black or a solid white, then you drop the opacity of that black or that white. So being able to see under this is kind of the idea. It frees up having to select multiple colors. If you were doing it by colors, you know, you would have to select a lighter blue here, you would have to select a lighter green here. By doing a solid white, dropping the opacity, since you can see through and see those under layers, that's actually what's serving the purpose of that highlight layer, is it's letting you kind of see underneath, but it's adding that white to it, which basically does the highlighting for you. It's just kind of an easy way to do that. So that's actually what you're wanting to go for. If that's what you thought you might have been doing wrong, that's actually a good way to do it. Overall, though, the design's really cool for a second attempt. The one thing I would probably change a little bit is when you have a really dark black outline like this, going with a really dark midnight blue is kind of too close to the black. Just looking at my TV screen right now, it's a lot brighter on the camera than it actually is on the iPad. So as far as looking at it right now on the TV screen, it doesn't look too dark, but on the iPad itself, it's really close to that black color. So I would probably tone down the blue a little bit, steer away from that like dark midnight blue or the almost like midnight purplish blue, and just get something a little bit brighter just so it pops a little bit more. Because like I said, on the screen here, as far as my iPad screen, it looks really dark. The other thing too that you might want to do with the eyes is, instead of doing these little blue lines here, you could actually go in with the highlights as well and just kind of add some highlights to those. And then, like I said, dropping that opacity like we talked about. See that we can see through there, but that's what we're wanting, is to kind of have a little bit of that green coming through so it looks not totally white, but it's got the right highlight color. So doing that might look a little bit better, just to make those kind of shine or glow a little bit, and then taking those greens out of there, or the blues on top of the greens as well. But really, really good job. And once again, can't wait to see, you know, with a little bit more time, what you can do. So thanks so much for sharing that. And last but not least, let's go here, is Ivan's. And let me pull up Ivan's real quick and see what he said. He said, looks kind of unfinished because I'm still struggling with the concept of lights and shadows. I think the hair needs some more shading, but I honestly can't figure it out. I'm new to digital art as well. So number one, welcome. We've got a lot of people new to digital art, and that's so much fun to see. It's really encouraging to see everybody kind of making the jump and really feeling comfortable in the group to share their work. So I really appreciate you guys, you know, kind of getting out of your comfort zone and sharing it and showing off your work. And thanks so much. It's really appreciated. But overall, number one, I mean, I love the character design. I think just the concept of it and just the appearance looks really, really good. The eyes stand out for me. Instead of doing, you know, perfect circular eyes, just kind of this loose, almost like it has a little bit of an angle to it. I really like that, especially in a zombie. I think that is kind of key to kind of giving off the right feel for the overall look of the character. As far as shadows go, I mean, you started with shadows and you've got them, you know, going pretty good. You've got, you know, some shadows here along the back side, so we'd have the light source coming over from here. So you might not want the shadow here, just because if you've got the light coming in, you know, from right here, this is going to be pretty well lit. You could always have a shadow coming down under here like you have, and kind of stretching that along if it's coming down from this way. And then maybe just adding a little bit more of shadows back in through here underneath the eyebrow and wrapped around this back part of the eye, underneath that bottom eye crease, and down and around to frame the face. And then getting that ear back here pretty shadowed in too, just because that's going to kind of be one of the furthest parts away. And as far as the hair, I've just done the men's and women's cartooning 101, how to draw hair, but really didn't get into too much as far as coloring. I'm going to kind of attempt to do that down the road. And as far as shadows and highlights, it was more just for the kind of drawing aspect, but we'll kind of touch on that here. So like I said, we got the light source coming in from here. Usually what I like to do for hair is this back section where the hair's going to be the most in the kind of shadowed section or part. I'll fill in this whole back part till it starts to come up into the rest of the body of the hair. So get this filled in pretty well and good until you've got kind of like a flat plane to work with. And then once we start to get into here is where the magic for this is going to happen. So we've got this all shaded in pretty well. I'm going to drop the opacity on this. And then from here, what we're going to do is just kind of start bringing out some almost like thick triangles. That's going to be the strands of the hair kind of laying on top of each other, just kind of makes this overall pattern of these tapered triangles coming out. And that's usually what I try to do with hair, is just do something like that, just to kind of have it flowing out of there. Of course, from here, if you want to add in extra parts, you can kind of add in stuff like this from here. You get kind of like a center part that's pretty thick, and then pull out some tapers from the side to add that effect. And you can also do that too by removing color or removing shading. So if we've got this back part like here, you can actually do that part back here too to give that look as well. So just kind of play around with that and see. You can add in or subtract other stuff here to kind of draw in some of the extra highlights from where the light might be coming in and hitting it as well. But just play around and see. Like I said, this kind of triangle tapered look is really good for adding some extra shadows to the hair. So all right, so awesome job too, Ivan. I appreciate seeing your stuff. Can't wait to see more from you. And that is it for this week's Zombies Word Art Challenge. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. As always, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. If you like today's video too, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications so you can get alerted when I post new videos. And just special thanks to everybody that submitted designs this week. Once again, like, the group keeps growing, more people keep participating, and it blows me away to see everybody's work week in and week out. You guys are just killing it, and I love it. Just the creativity is awesome to see. If you guys have not yet joined, hop on over to Facebook after the video. Keep creating. The link is in the description below. It's the Learn, Draw, Share art community. That's where you post your designs based on these videos. And this week's word, zombie, I picked that just because announced in the previous video and also on the Facebook page that I'm actually going out to LA Comic-Con in October. So if you guys are in the LA area and are attending Comic-Con October 11th through the 13th, I'll be at the Unicorns and Zombies booth. It's a card game that I illustrated, and I'm going to be doing a signing out there for all 3 days. So stop by the booth, say hi, pick up a game, get it signed, chat, take some pictures, get some drawings. It's going to be a good time. So I want to see you guys out there. So that's why I chose the zombies word this week. And also my shirt. If you like this shirt, this is the first time I've ever kind of shown off one of my shirts on the channel. This is Zombie Jesus, of course, and it's available on Amazon right now. I'm actually going to link to this in the description below. Usually I don't talk about my shirts on the channel, but this one I'm going to put under my name so you can check it out if you guys want an official Zombie Jesus t-shirt. So this week's word previously was zombie. This new week, we're going to do giraffe. So giraffes are big around our house. It's my wife's favorite animal, and it's kind of like our go-to kind of decorating motif for the house. We've got giraffes absolutely everywhere. So I thought it'd be fun to see what you guys do with giraffe. Like I said, just post them over on Keep Creating. If you don't have Facebook, I hear a lot of people say that, you can email me at my website, bjdell.com. I'm also on Instagram and Twitter at bjdell. Send them in a DM over there. Just want to see what you guys make. So a lot of people see them on Facebook if you post there. That's why we kind of have that set up. But you can find me on all those places as well as Patreon. I'll put the link for all those in the description below. And that's it. So until next time, keep creating.